You're watching the Chucktown Wind Report Extended Weekday Outlook from Tuesday, November the 3rd through Friday, November the 6th. Okay, so all eyes are on this area of low pressure as it heads along the boundary that's through our area right now towards the Atlantic Ocean. Most of the activity, the heavier rain activity, has exited to our northeast over southeast North Carolina, just northeast of Myrtle Beach, and we see a lot of this rain starting to kind of fizzle out to our south. We do still have some storms and showers streaming up from the southwest, so we'll have to continue to watch radar for today. However, it looks like most of the atmospheric river down across the Gulf of Mexico has dried out significantly due to this large, dry ridge of high pressure that has developed to our west and to our north. We're looking at this high pressure to build to our north and drive down this northerly flow this morning and eventually lean east-northeast in time as this boundary sort of keeps pressing just a little bit to our south. So we'll have a little avenue opening up this afternoon for east-northeast build, but we'll have to continue to watch for nearshore troughing and rain activity to be embedded with it. So as time goes on, as we get into tomorrow, it looks like as this low heads out, this boundary gets caught across northern Florida, and it gets caught very close to the coastline because of this guy right here. This high pressure ridge is going to be pinching this boundary in between this high pressure and this high pressure. So it looks like this front's not going to be going anywhere for a few days, and what that means is that this high pressure to the north will bite down into the backside of this and create moderate winds along the coastline as this nearshore troughing persists for at least the next 24 to 48 hours. If you remember, this low pressure was in association with what we talked about in our last forecast, this western continental upper level low that developed as a surge of warm air from El Nino over Southern California and northern Baja, and it's had a rather long and extensive history as it's gone across Texas aggressively and into Louisiana and the Gulf states and into the southeast region. So this system has been a long time coming across the country and is just now getting to us, and it looks like it's going to stall and be kind of problematic to northern Florida at least, if not to the entire southeast coast for the next several days. Depends on this high pressure and this ridge of high pressure here building in behind it as to how far offshore it goes, because this high pressure ridge out here in the Atlantic is a little bit weaker and may be able to nudge that further to the east. So we're looking at a pretty sticky situation along our coast for the next few days, with clouding remaining in the forecast, possible showers and rains, and some moderate winds. So we're looking at northeast to east-northeast winds building today into the mid-teens. I'm saying we could see 13 to 17 knots build as early as midday to early afternoon. We're seeing a little bit of a northerly build this morning, and as time goes on, those winds could shift to the east-northeast. That will depend on this low pressure. The closer it gets to our area, the trickier the winds get, and the more northerly they'll stay. So as we go into time into tomorrow, if that low goes off of the coastline, we should be able to get an east-northeast flow biting down to the coast for most of the day. And again, tomorrow we're looking at 13 to 17 knots with possible 14 to 18 knots and clouding and some scattered drizzles and rains remaining in the forecast. As we get into Thursday, this low should be heading down in this direction with the boundary. Some of this boundary activity should be a little bit further out. This high pressure moves a little bit off to the northeast, and we start to see a clocking direction where we see more of an east-southeasterly turn into our coast, and then ultimately by Friday we see the ridge build firmly down to the southeast, and we get more of a southerly wind building by Friday. So after today and tomorrow, the winds should start to weaken and head more of a clocking direction as they head east to east-southeast, southeast, and ultimately by Friday probably get a southerly flow ahead of another cold front that's dropping down to the southeast region. So that's getting a little bit far ahead in time, but we do think by this weekend we'll see another low pressure system approaching the southeast region. Okay, here's our visible radar. You see a bulk of the activity moving into southeast North Carolina. Now across Wilmington, we do have some streaming rains and showers moving into southern Georgia to southern South Carolina right now. If we look at our infrared, you can see some of the heavier clouding over North Carolina and Outer Banks, and some of this area is starting to weaken to our south. Some of the rain is drying up as it enters into northern Florida. If we look at our water vapor loop, we'll get a better picture of why that's occurring, and you can see this orange area behind it really working in behind there. There is a large air mass of dry air working in behind this frontal boundary, so that's why the rains are starting to sort of taper off. Okay, looking at data scope for Charleston, the gradient to our north, we're showing 18 knots up in Outer Banks. And let me zoom out just a little bit. Looks like Winyah Bay is showing 13 knots. You can see this northerly flow starting to work its way down the coast behind the frontal boundary that's near us. And here we go. So Nag's Head, let's see, we were showing 18 knots at Jeanette's Pier a little while ago. We're down to 14 and 15 knots. Pimlico Sound, Ocracoke, seeing 15 to 17 knots there. As we get down into Charleston, the northerly flow is starting to turn on a little bit. And we have 13 knots in the harbor. So here's Fort Sumter Front Range Light. And we're seeing a little bit of a build already from that northerly gradient between high pressure and low pressure. Let's take a look at Folly Beach Pier. And I want to run the models on this one to see what the winds are expected to do. There's probably going to be some disagreement in the models today with this tricky boundary through the area. But I think most are in agreement with the east-northeast flow by this afternoon. And we see the high resolution rapid refresh, which is the red. That one does go northeast, east-northeast, and along with the North American model 5 kilometer, it takes that one a little bit later in the day. So we could have some conflict there, and we could keep some variable winds in the forecast. But once these northerly winds arrive, they usually kind of stick around. I'm not seeing a south or southwesterly wind anymore. Usually once the frontal boundary passes through the area, it will not come back with the northerly winds biting down behind it. Okay, so as we get into Wednesday, we see the east-northeast winds lock in. Now the models always take this down. Most of them keep it at 10 to 11 knots or below, but we always have to factor in that east-northeast backdoor sea breezing effect that we usually see. So I'm calling for 13 to 17 knots for Wednesday. As we get into Thursday, we see the easterly flow persisting, and we could actually see another round of east-northeast winds if the gradient holds up, or it could start turning more east to east-southeast, and then eventually it clocks around to the south by Friday. So some of these medium range models are starting to agree with that scenario or that solution for Friday. Okay, let's take a look at tropics. Not much going on in the tropics. We have a lot of west to east upper level shear going on across the intertropical convergence zone over towards the Cape Verde Islands. We have a semi-relaxed environment south of Cuba we'll keep an eye on. And then along the tail end of this boundary down in the Bay of Campeche, we have a little bit of a blow up there. Probably nothing to worry about, but just another area to watch. Overall, pretty relaxed in the Atlantic Basin, not much to worry about. Over in the Middle East, though, is a different story, as we have Cyclone Chapala that has made landfall in Yemen. A very, very rare occurrence. It was setting up to make landfall as a Category 3 hurricane and ended up weakening rapidly into a Category 1 by the time it made landfall. If we look at the winds, it looks like the winds, vorticity maximum 61 knots. I believe we have 65 knot winds, which is about 75 to 80 miles an hour, currently going on right now. And some of the models say that there was going to be about 1 to 3 years of rain dumped all in a 24 to 48 hour period in this area of the world. So being in a desert area, that's very significant. If we look at the graph, we see how fast the system fell off in the last 24 hours. So we're down to 65 knots, and the pressure is up to, looks like about 974 was the last one I read, but it looks like it's even up even more than that, around 985 to 990. So that's pretty unique. I just wanted to kind of point that out, that the Middle East actually got hit by an equivalent of a Category 1 hurricane. So pretty neat stuff there. Okay, let's see. Recap for the Charleston area. We'll say for today, we have these northerly winds going on right now. They should lean out to the northeast and east-northeast this afternoon. I'm betting on a 13 to 17 knot flow as time goes on. As we get into tomorrow, Wednesday, we see east-northeast winds persist. We could see 13 to 17 knots, possible 14 to 18 knots with backdoor sea breezing effects. As we get into Thursday, we see more of an easterly lean and the gradient fall off just a little bit, so we could either be 11 to 15 or 12 to 16 knots. And then as we get into Friday, the winds fall all the way over to the south around the high pressure, and we're looking at most likely 10 knots or below with the cooler waters and the warmer land. Even with a warm land mass or warm air mass, we're starting to see some of that marine layering become an issue to keep beaches below 10 knots. The harbor could see some low teens. And that will do it for the Chucktown Wind Report. Thanks for watching.